All right, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Appian and particularly Karen Astley, who's here in almost the front row, for inviting me up here to present on what we're doing at UniSA. Just to start off with some geography, so UniSA is based in Adelaide, which is in the southern coast of Australia. I think it's actually the almost exact opposite side of the globe from here, so my body right now thinks it's 2 a.m. in the morning, so if I nod off, just prod me or something. Adelaide itself is a small city, 1.5 million people. Quite a nice city, as you can see, it's sunny there, as opposed to here. But although I have heard it's been raining for the last week since I've been away. Yeah, effectively it's a small city, has 3 universities, University of South Australia, Flinders University and University of Adelaide. Just another plug for Adelaide there. Adelaide, or South Australia, is famous for its wine regions. So we have the Barossa Valley, which is north of the city, and then McLaren Vale, which is south of the city there. And if you ever do get fortunate enough to try a glass of Grange Hermitage from Penfolds, I certainly recommend it. University of South Australia itself is a young university. It's actually only just celebrating its 25th birthday this year. It did start off in around the 1900s as the School of Mines, and particularly, was the Institute of Technology back then as well. But also, UniSA was formed across that period up until 1991 when it became a university from a number of colleges of education. UniSA has around 35,000 students and close to 3,500 staff. The current Vice-Chancellor or Vice-President, who started in 2012, recently created an action plan and named it Crossing the Horizon. This was to ensure it was wholly focused on achieving and surpassing the university's main objectives. One of those key goals was to transition the university from effectively old ways into new ways to become a true university of enterprise. This is certainly evident when you can see the old university building there on the right compared with the newest building that we've just built, which is the library. And you can certainly see that often some tension plays out when we're dealing with people hanging on to the old ways of a university. So one of the key action items from the strategic plan was to move all administration to be wholly online by 2018. We've got many paper-based processes, and that requires many staff to administer them. The current academic versus professional staff ratio is something like 1 to 1.2 professional staff. So we've actually got more administrative staff than teachers or researchers. So the size of the administration is a significant problem. The education sector, like many public organisations, suffered budget cuts throughout recent times. And so more and more universities are needing to operate like any other business and looking to optimise where we can. So just looking at the current state, we've currently got around about 750 plus paper forms across the university. And this is resulting in around about, that's actually 750,000 forms being processed throughout the year. Casual academics themselves generate around about 100,000 timesheets that were submitted across a year. The university's new hire process is also completely paper-based and created poor new starter experiences. So obviously a paper-based environment produces many inefficiencies across the organisation. So common themes throughout UniSA is that we've got a lot of manual workflows across those paper-based processes where everyone is printing, writing on the paper, scanning the piece of paper, emailing it back to someone who probably then prints it out again and stores it somewhere. This generates, I guess, a lot of dead time with the forms just sitting in trays across the organisation, and then the transit time of that paper form or sitting in email boxes unnoticed because we've all got busy email boxes. Business rules particularly are a problem in that they're invisible in a paper-based process. No validation, creating lots of errors on input that then causes rework of those paper forms. And service levels are practically invisible, so we couldn't even measure actually how bad the service level that we're offering is. So it gives us a really difficult sort of starting point to generate some improvement. But overarching everything is that we want to improve the customer experience that's being provided and to make it mobile. Currently, the processes are very tied to a desktop, needing a person to actually process these forms on their desktop. So, a job for Appian. The objectives here obviously is to eliminate all the paper from across the university, and that strategic target of doing that by 2018. Our IT unit has a mantra that any service that we offer should be offered or be available to the customer to consume basically anytime, anywhere, and on any device. We want to reduce rework and ensure that data entered is correct first time, and to introduce a lot of real-time validations across to our reference data. We want to introduce service level agreements across our processes, and therefore we want to be able to measure the process efficiency and look to improve them where we can. Once again, overall, we want to improve the customer experience. So in doing that, we're looking at the Appian features that it provides. One of the key requirements that we wanted to introduce was somewhat similar to, I think, one of the talks this morning mentioned the CME group, whereby they wanted to introduce new capability, but didn't want to introduce another interface. So University of South Australia already has its staff portal, so like CME, we wanted to provide some seamless integration into those environments. So here's an example of our custom in-house .NET environment that brings together a lot of capabilities from across the university. We introduced a component within that called the My Workbox. So that's something that's presented to staff and actually will be presented to students sometime soon to show them any sort of outstanding tasks that have been assigned to them. This way they don't need to go into Appian to actually find out if they've actually got any tasks waiting. We aren't yet users of the Appian sort of news feeds. That may come at a later date. But effectively that My Workbox uses the Appian sort of web API to extract those tasks and present them within a .NET environment. We're also embedding Appian content throughout certain facets of the portal. So here's a component of our casual academic contract process, whereby we've included effectively Appian records into that .NET interface once again. This was actually released prior to embedded content and sites functionality coming out, so probably now we'd need to go back and rework this so that we would use native sort of embedded content and sites. But what we have introduced just recently is a reassign button where we need to actually reassign the approval task for the casual timesheet. That does use the embedded content and brings up a Appian sale form to reassign that task. So as you can see, there's no sort of Appian branding sort of around the box. It just appears as if it's a dialog box coming out of a .NET application. We've also used the sites functionality. So I mentioned the recruitment process that's in place within the university. We've now worked that into Appian processes and used the sites functionality to provide that custom and UniSA branded interface. And this is important for a new starter because once they're they're starting at the university, they really only want to sort of interact with a UniSA environment and not unfamiliar interfaces. So within that recruitment process as well, we've embedded some video content into that Appian sites, and once again that provides an excellent customer experience for that new starter. We've only just released, probably around about February this year, a custom mobile app. And this is, I mean, obviously we could be using the Appian app, but we also wanted to provide a UniSA branded app mobile experience as well. Having a custom app allows us to put that branding, so obviously in the Apple App Store you can see the branding is very predominantly UniSA with a Appian sort of mentioned down the bottom there. But effectively, having a custom app means that the setup for it's called a non-technical staff member, particularly a senior management person, just needs to really download the app and then just enter their username and password. And once they select the Remember Me option in that app, it's as simple as just clicking on the icon within the phone and they're within Appian. The key is around defining that custom URL to UniSA's Appian environment, and that was something that we're really cautious on. If we didn't have the custom app, that itself could create problems when you're asking non-technical people to enter server URLs within the app. So certainly benefited the ease of use of setup of the app environment, and we certainly hope that it takes off. One thing that's proven true with the mobile app environment is the fact that you really do need to put in practically no effort to have the interfaces work on a mobile device. So here we can see we've got some data entry tasks that render really well on a mobile device, but then also the approval task is where the most significant benefit has come in place, whereby once again management or more senior management staff who are often doing these approvals, they're very mobile. They often are not at their desks. So what we've seen already is a massive improvement in the actual time to approve some of these processes. So that's been proven really popular so far. Records and reports. This is probably nothing new, but we've obviously presented process data within a record grid view in a tailored view for an administrator. But as we've seen with processes as they complete through their life cycle, business areas still want to see historic records of these processes. They want to drill through, see who requested what, who approved it. And particularly auditors, when they come in and audit our process, because we're government regulated, we get audited quite a lot. Auditors are always looking for evidence that our processes and business rules have been followed. So what we've done with each of the processes we build, we create a PDF version of the process, or we call it a process manifest, that effectively captures all the data entry that's been entered within the process, when it was instigated, who approved it, as effectively a audit trail and record of that process. In generating that PDF, obviously that means we have to store it somewhere. So what we've done recently is, and in conjunction with Appian Professional Services, is build an integration with our SharePoint environment, which is the Microsoft Office 365 cloud environment. We use that as our document repository. So now at the end of every process, what we do is obviously we generate that PDF, but we also then push that PDF out to a predefined SharePoint location for that process, so that either auditors or the business process owners can always go to that location and see the historic records there. So that's also proven very, very useful. Okay, so that's really just a glimpse of what we've done at UniSA. There is sort of plenty more and lots of detail behind sort of what was shown. We're about to undertake a new process in the area of travel across the university. University has a significant amount of travel with our academics travelling the globe. So we're looking to integrate the travel booking process with online travel providers to effectively get some real-time integration happening around that to significantly improve the travel booking and approval processes. So that's probably the next big thing that we're looking at, and once again, delivery on a mobile device is going to be key to its success. So with that, I'll hand over now to the University of South Florida colleagues, and they'll present on their interfaces. Thank you.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Sure. So, wow, this is loud. And I'm not used to a podium, but I'm going to try anyway. I don't have pretty pictures about Florida, but I'll tell you it looks as good as Adelaide. And you don't have to travel as far, so please come to Tampa. We do. We import it from Adelaide. So we have wine from Adelaide. But a little bit about the University of South Florida. This is a slide that the marketing guys make sure I have at every presentation. But I did want to pick out the highlights because a lot of folks don't know about the University of South Florida. I think we're one of the best kept secrets within the United States. So we are a large research university. We have over 40,000 students. We are a system. We have multiple campuses across the Tampa Bay area. And we were at one time, if you want to check your trivia, and Bridget, I know you lost a bet to me, ranked number 2 in the nation in the BCS poll many years ago. And that's actually true. You can look it up. So go Bulls. So when we came on our BPM journey, which began not so long ago, the question was, why does USF need BPM? In fact, why do universities need business process management? And really, it's for all the reasons Tony said and more. We are under the same pressure that most of you are. Shrinking budgets, do more with less, get done in a day. That's no different at a university. It really isn't. But there's something else. We have a sacred duty to educate the next generation of students. And we have to do it in a way that's cheap. For those of you that haven't heard, Bernie Sanders says this all the time, right? Student debt is rising. Well, we are the custodians of that. And it's not that it's rising because universities do things badly, it's because of the model. And so we need to change our model. And we can only change our model by becoming focused on our clients. And that means we need to focus on the students. We need to focus on our faculty that deliver that content. And then we need to make life super easy for the staff that have to actually facilitate the process. And that's really what led us to business process management. How can we be super efficient when the pie is shrinking, when there's a feeling out there that education is too expensive? And the only way you can really do that is if you leverage technology well, which leads me to why Appian. I always think about why we picked Appian, and it comes down to something really, really simple, alignment. And what I mean by alignment is, if you're going to pick a partner, you've got to pick a partner you truly believe in and truly believes in you. For those of you that don't know, we probably were one of the first few universities in the US to actually decide to go on the journey. And it is a journey because our plan is to mobilize everything for the student and use Appian as a platform. And we wanted to pick a partner that understood core concepts of what that meant. It meant delivering value quickly. It meant making sure that we were agile. It meant making sure that everyone understood the concept of a minimally viable product. And Alice is going to talk about that a bit, I'm sure. But we had to educate ourselves, and we had to have a partner that understood that. The core thing about telling your clients that you have a minimally viable product is them believing that you're actually going to come back and that they're not going to be left with this minimally viable product, right? So if you give them a minimally viable product and leave, you're never going to have that conversation again. Appian allows you to come back again and again and measure what that minimally viable product actually is and how to change. And then you have to measure, you have to measure, and you have to measure again. Because remember I said our pie is shrinking. So if you're going to fix a business process, I have to go to my COO and say, well, we fixed your business process. It used to take 3 months, and now it takes 2 weeks. How much is that worth to you? Because as you know, implementing a BPM solution, especially something as sophisticated as Appian for a university is a decent investment. And so you always want to make sure that you have metrics that drive what you're looking at. And finally, it works on all devices. And I put this as a slide in itself because this was another thing. There was alignment of philosophy, and it just has to work on all devices. Why is this critical? Because we have students. They don't work in a desktop environment anymore. Some of them don't even know what a desktop means until they walk into a lab. They work on their mobile devices, and so we should work on their mobile devices. The administrators may not be as savvy on the mobile devices, but we found to our surprise that faculty actually are. So it isn't generational, right? A lot of folks use the iPad, and when we walked through the app, we made sure that it was accessible on all devices, depending on what you want to use. So I'm going to talk about Archivum, and when I say Archivum, I mean Appian. But we wanted this to mean something at USF, and to us, Archivum is a collection of records. And to us, everything we do at USF with Appian or Archivum will be about the record. And our records are students, our records are faculty, and our records are research. That's the core of what we do, and that's what we're going to build on. So when we got started, and I'm kind of the preview act for what Alice is going to show you in terms of what we actually did, but I want to briefly touch on what you need to make you successful. You got to have governance. If you have no governance, you're going to fail. You got to make sure that you have a team structure that's going to be able to actively engage with your governance team, and then you have to be agile. I'm going to say agile over and over and over again, and I don't mean agile as you got to pick Scrum, you got to pick Kanban. That's not what it's all about. What it's all about is creating an agile mindset within your organization. It's about creating that agile mindset with your clients. We train our clients on agile for about a half-day session and tell them what it's like to be agile. We have product owners in the business. I see one of them actually in the audience with us. And we tell our folks that they're going to be tired at the end of when they're done with a sprint because we want them to understand what that means. And then finally, you have to track, and then track again. What is the ROI of what you're planning to do? And if you do that, you can then create an ecosystem for a very, very successful IBPM engagement. But there are certain keys to that ecosystem. Do your clients have skin in the game? So at USF, we have the individual colleges investing in the Archivum platform, in Appian. They're involved in purchasing decisions with us. They know Bridget as well as I do, right? And it also has to be strategic projects. It's very easy at a university, for example, to say we have a lot of forms, and so we're going to put this stuff online. Is that of value? How much value is that going to create? What's the ROI that you're going to actually get? Is that a critical business process that's going to reduce an FTE or actually allow you to spend more time with your student? That's what it's all about. The goal of a university is to make sure that the student gets the best possible education in the shortest possible time at the highest quality. Is your Archivum project actually going to contribute to student success? That's how we like to approach it. And then finally, you want to make sure you have a cross-functional team to execute. IT, I've found in my long experience, doesn't have all the answers. We think we do, but we really don't. And so it requires us to be part of the business. The next generation of technology professionals will not be folks that can code well. It will be folks that can understand what it means to have a successful student if you're in technology, what it means to have a great patient experience, because part of my background is in healthcare. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to someone who actually understands all of this. I'd like to introduce Alice Way, who's in charge of actually executing this vision for USF. And she's going to talk about what we've achieved. And to be honest with you, it blew my mind that we started in August, which was the first time we actually had wheels on the ground from the Appian team to now. So with that, Alice.
Hello, everyone. Let me start off with asking, how many here are actually from a university or education? That's not from my team. And the next question I'll ask is, how many of you have actually gone through, like, you know, getting registered for as a student, onboarding as a student, going to classes, and all the pains that, you know, the paper-driven processes that all university have. You've all experienced, a lot of you have experienced that, right? And so what I'm going to be talking about a lot about is how we're going to change all of this at USF. This initiative came all the way down from the president of our university. One of the things that we're focusing really aggressively on in the coming years is student success. And so a lot of what we prioritize in our first projects is about student success. The next one will be more we'll probably do also travel very soon and stuff like that as well, inward facing things. But the reason why we're here as a university is to educate students. And so a lot of the projects I'm going to show is about enhancing the student success. The other piece that we identified before we even started as key success factors was asking our customers, what is the return on value? What is it that they want to solve? We commonly go in as IT traditionally with, I can help you with the technology solution, but we don't often listen very carefully to what the problem is first. And so that's something that we force the customers to answer back to is, what are you trying to solve, and how are we going to measure that success once we implement something for you? And they should be actually realistic measures, not this vague, well, you know, I want to be able to, you know, approve things faster or something like that, very generic, right? We've heard all those kind of metrics before. And so that really, we changed the paradigm in the way that IT comes in, and it's more of a partnership rather than, I would say, consultant, which is what traditionally it's been. The last thing you'll see me emphasizing, even though we didn't get many of the screenshots for, is all our apps are mobile ready, and most of our students interact with us through Appian in a mobile device. And so our faculty and our advisors may be using desktops, but our students are mostly going to be using mobile devices to interact with us. So what I'll start off with is the problem statement. So one of the first projects that we implemented in Appian was the student appointment request form. And this was for our College of Public Health. And the main goal was to onboard and hire on students as actual employees. Pretty simple, right? Problem was it was paper-driven. And it took about 6 to 15 days to onboard a student as an employee at the university. And that was just depending on if all the people that needed to sign off were available at the time. So how fast that process finished was dependent on a lot of unknown variables. And the transparency for the process, because it was paper-driven, was not there. We didn't know where we would get stuck. We didn't know who had to sign next. And that kind of drove the long time it takes to finish the process. And so when we moved it into Appian as a actual project, we immediately started seeing some ROI, which is the reduction in time. And the key thing is, which as Sydney mentioned before, is records. We started creating a student record, and as well as beginnings of a staff record for our College of Public Health. And it allows our advisors, the HR department, to be able to see everything they need to, their financials, their HR appointments, and the student their status of if they're even able to get hired or not in one interface. Before, it was in disparate systems, and they had to open up our OASIS, which is our student information system, our PeopleSoft, which houses our HR and financials, and this custom app that we call the student database. That they had to have all those open to be able to see if they could even hire the student. And what we ended up doing with Appian, what we was able to do because of the power of it, is it's all in one interface. And they don't have to open up multiple browsers and all that stuff. And we began to sunset our custom application that's been around for probably about 10 years, I would say, and in desperate need of a revamp, but we realized we didn't have to because half the data was migrated into the Appian system. The next one that we did was a program of study. And how many of you guys have filled out forms for like which concentration or what degree you want to take, and then you have to like match to the right course and hopefully match it in just the right order and whatever so that you graduate on time. So that's what the program of study was for College of Public Health. It was like the holy grail, and good luck if you could get it right the first time. Because it was just in the college alone, there was 100 variations of that form. And so depending on what your concentration is or what degree, hopefully the advisor you get knows which one to give you, and also can advise you wisely based on the 4 systems they have to have open on what's the right thing to take at the right time. And so same thing it was a fully paper-driven process. The advisors' offices all had a stack about this big of forms, and they had to pick the right form for the student when they came in. And all this had to be done sitting in the room with the advisor. And of course, no transparency. Advisor had multiple systems they had to look through, and it took about 1 to 2 weeks to even give a student a program of study to take with them and say, you should register for these classes. We moved it into Appian. It took only 6 weeks for us to develop, and as you can see, all of this is now in one interface once again. And the really awesome thing is the student and the advisor can prepare a lot of the things ahead because it's online, and then come into the meeting with the advisor prepared to have actual conversations about strategics rather than, okay, well, what degree do you want to take? And, well, how many classes have you taken already? What year are you in? What were your grades? All those things are already preset and pre-done. And it could be filled out on a mobile or whatever, but it can be done ahead of time and not waste the student and advisor's time on the stuff that should be already there. We enhanced our student record, and I'll explain why I keep mentioning this, but it's really crucial for the Appian platform that we've built. And then we fully sunsetted our student database. That was the first application that was custom built in Cold Fusion that we fully sunsetted and moved into the Appian platform. The next one I want to talk about is our advising meeting. So we just talked about meeting the advisor. This is about scheduling the appointment advisor. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in the College of Business, trying to schedule a meeting with my advisor was probably as likely as me selecting a class on Fridays. And it's quite a feat. And for the College of Medicine, they actually had one full position that was dedicated to coordinating the schedule creations between the student and the faculty member or the advisee. And it was a challenge, and it was through email. And you know how email goes. You see some of them and some of them you never see because it gets lost in I don't know where. And so that was the problem that College of Medicine brought to us was it was manual. We're spending a full position just on doing scheduling, and there were so many if statements depending on which advisor it was. They had their own preferences and their own time blocks and all that stuff. It's very complicated, and so it took about a week to schedule, just to get a schedule. We migrated it into Appian. We were able to automate the entire process and add even new features such as being able to comment. So the advisor and the student can exchange comments in between meetings, or advisor can comment about the student that the student can't see, but other advisors and faculty can see. Students can give feedback, and also we've streamlined the process, so it's not, because it's faculty such and such, we have to block out Wednesdays. We actually force the business to rethink their business rules and logics because of this. And the big key piece of this integration, this piece, was that we integrated with Office 365. So the scheduling actually is done through the Exchange servers. This was huge for us because then you don't have to try to manage multiple calendars and stuff like that. You can actually send out a availability list for the student to look at without exposing the advisor or faculty's full schedule for the week or something like that. And this was the first application that we built with the mind of it being scalable. So it's something that we're going to be able to extend out to other colleges and other places in the university with ease. And so that was kind of the power of that we discovered with Appian as well, is it's extendable. And as long as you build it right, you can share it with anyone else in the organization. And you don't have to rebuild everything again. So that was really the cool part about this. And I believe we were willing to share the connection to Exchange in the app market. So that was our big achievement there. This is our big hitter, and I think our most proud project to date, even though, I mean, we've only been doing it 9 months, so don't hold me to it in a year. But this, if anyone has relatives or family or friends that has gone through medical school, I'm sure you've heard about the lottery system. It is the most complex and convoluted system you've ever have to go through. And it literally decides a medical student's career for the rest of their lives. So if you're matched incorrectly, that's too bad. That's what you get to do for the rest of your career as a medical doctor. And so it's very important to the student. And every fourth-year student in the United States has to do this. And so it was a fully paper-driven process, and it took 3 months for our registrar to do it. She would collect all this information from the students on what their preferences are, and they're usually by location, the time frame they want to take it, and when, and the, what was the other one? And then what concentration you wanted to be in. And so there was many complexities in theirs, and if you want any details, our team's actually here, and the consultant that helped build it is also here. So I will leave the details to them. So once we moved it into Appian, this was a project that our custom development team, and it's not a ding on them, it's just the nature of custom development, told us that it was impossible to build because it was so complex. For the amount of value and time that it would take to build this, it wasn't possible. We're better off doing it manually now and doing a different project. That was the most profound statement that we had, and one of the drivers in choosing a BPM software like Appian, in all honesty. And as you can see here, I have on top, it took 12 weeks to get an MVP. And it automated the entire process. The registrar now spends 2 weeks opening up the system to the students to put in their preferences, and 20 minutes to run the system, when it took 3 months. And so it was a huge change. She actually said before we started the project, if we can't get it done this time, guys, I think I'm just going to quit, because I don't want to do this anymore. And when we were done, she's like, I don't know what to do with myself anymore. Are they going to fire me because I don't have any work? And so it's really great it's great to hear that, because she can do other things, not because she could get fired. So that was really the lottery system, and it's much more complex than I have explained here, but for what we're trying to share, I think it's good enough. And I wanted to share some of the reporting that we were able to build in Appian. This was actually built for our internal dev team to check whether or not the system was running correctly. However, our customers found it valuable themselves and actually use it as well. But this basically checks to see if the lottery ran correctly. So if you saw any red check marks there or X's, then the lottery didn't run correctly, so we would rerun it again. This graph basically is telling you that about 90%, and marketing people out there, 90%, match to their first choices on all three: location, choice of time, and concentration. So that was something that was not even able to measure prior to this system being created in Appian because it was a manual process. And this is another graph that shows pretty much similar things. And the last thing that I want to wrap up on is the concept of the record. It's the core of how we decide to build and architect our Appian at USF. This is an example of a student record. And when we first started, we had only probably email and maybe their U number, which is what we use to identify our students. And as we developed each new iteration or new feature, we added more and more stuff. So we now have degree status, we have their GPA, even though we blanked that out for obvious reasons. Their residency, all that stuff is stuff that we added in iteratively. So as we build more and more things into Appian, the record will get richer and richer. And then eventually it's not going to be how many apps did you build in Appian. It's going to be how many features and how much things can you do with the records that you have. And that's the power that we saw with this tool. And then just looking at a little more future state, these are the things that we're considering in terms of our long-term and what we would like to build. Risk factors, graduation needs, learning analytics are huge right now. They're a huge topic in education. It's how are we teaching our students well? How are they going to be able to succeed? And all those kind of things that are really important to showing whether or not we're training we're training the students in the right kind of things. The next will be our faculty record. I don't know if, I'm sure you've all interacted with a faculty that has, ego up to here, and they want to have, their CVs, which are about 50 pages long of all the accomplishments they've ever done. Right now that's manual, and we want to put that in Appian because that's all data that's already existent. We just want to pull that all into one interface for them to be able to edit. And alumni records, we're going to tie that into marketing and ask for more money from them. And research records, of course, so that's going to be big for us. But I just wanted to share some of the future things that we're thinking about doing in Appian, and that's about it. Thank you.
Sydney, Alice, thank you. I don't know if this is going to come back on, but we do have a couple minutes here. We're going into a break, so if there are one or two questions, we can take them here. But then I would encourage you, eager hands, I see, right? I would encourage you guys to also submit questions into us through the app and just to find me and find these folks. Yes, sir.
Hi, quick question on the South Florida hiring application. Given that there are 12 applications open concurrently to try to pick and choose the record information, is there an ROI on reduction of errors?
So the simple answer is yes, right? But the more complex answer is, at a university, you traditionally, the ROI would come if you reduce FTE, right, is one, in terms of checking and auditing. But we also have ROI that comes from making sure that you don't have to do it again, in terms of save time. So we haven't been able to measure yet the value of reduction in errors, but we have measured pretty well the amount of time that it's saved the university from an onboarding perspective. Does that make sense? Because we need students to get on board and hire them and pay them pretty quickly, but we haven't really measured, because it's so new, the ROI from actually eliminating the amount of time. So that hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, I want to say the application probably rolled out a month or two ago.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah, on the exchange integration piece, did you run any security type hurdles with that? Because from what I understand, you extend Appian using Java, and of course with Exchange, it has pretty stringent security apparatus in place.
Yes.
Open up your web services and so forth.
Yeah, I think the Exchange implementation was interesting, and we worked very closely with the Appian PS folks and our networking team. Trust me, my security guy came and said, "You're going to do what?" But there's two parts to it, and I want to explain again the concept of minimally viable product. We actually did something unique in terms of security. We actually asked the advisors to give the application permission as delegate, right? Which is amazingly simple when you think about it, but it allows you to also work around the complexity. So you're asking the advisor, do you trust the application? And the advisor says, yes, I do trust the application. And then now your security model is amazingly simple. Now, is that something you want to scale in an online app? Probably not. But did it get the job done? Sure.
We had a similar authentication model for Office 365 SharePoint in that we implemented a federated authentication model back to our Active Directory. So we were able to satisfy our security guys also that it was fine.
I'm sorry, I wish we could keep it going, but we do have to stay on schedule. Thank you once again, Alice, Sydney.